James Bell here, the Boxing Source, with another video. And this video is a follow-up to the news of Canelo Alvarez being stripped of the IBF middleweight championship for not making a deal with the mandatory contender Sergey Derevyanchenko. It seems like his boss, Oscar De La Hoya, has a response to that, and he is not happy at all about it. Um, he expressed his disdain for the IBF making the decision of stripping the IBF middleweight championship from Canelo Alvarez, and has basically claimed that they tried to make a deal with Sergey Derevyanchenko and his team, and Derevyanchenko would not accept it, and so that's why you have that follow-up decision by the IBF, and that Oscar De La Hoya seems like he wants to um, pursue legal action against the IBF for the decision that they have made. Um, Not very sure that it's going to go very far because this is the IBF, who is notorious for stripping uh, fighters from the belt if they do not defend against their mandatory. We know about Gennady Golovkin being stripped last year for not fighting Sergey Derevyanchenko, and previous you had Tyson Fury that had won the IBF heavyweight championship from Vladimir Klitschko, but was stripped within 2 weeks from the IBF because he was not going to fight the mandatory contender at that particular time, because there was at that time a rematch that was going to be happening between him and Vladimir Klitschko. So that is why this news of the IBF stripping Canelo Alvarez is really not much of a surprise, given what the IBF has done. But with Oscar De La Hoya expressing his um, sentiments towards the IBF, that is something that will have the boxing world buzzing a little bit here for the next couple of days, but we don't see it really going that far. What I find interesting is that, as I've said in the previous video in reference to Canelo Alvarez, is that, it was reported that Alvarez could be making a deal with the WBO middleweight champion Demetrius Andrade. And if that is the case, then you would have had another unification bout that would take place. If they were able to secure that bout, probably, I would say 2 weeks ago, or maybe even 3 weeks ago, then I wonder what the IBF's decision would have been then. It seems like they have different rules in reference to when the mandatory is called in comparison to the other sanctioning bodies like the WBA and the WBC. But even with that, usually unifications trump mandatory defenses. But as I've said, in the examples there, you had Tyson Fury get stripped while being the unified champion after defeating Vladimir Klitschko, and even after that, once he was stripped of that belt, and Anthony Joshua eventually won that belt, he was Joshua was only able to get one unification defense before the IBF mandatory was called, where he ended up having to fight Carlos Takam. So here with Canelo Alvarez losing that IBF title, that's basically the IBF following their rules and their protocol. And with Oscar De La Hoya expressing his feelings about his guy Canelo Alvarez being stripped, is just something there that could probably be shut down within the next couple of days. But once we get news of who Canelo Alvarez will be ending up fighting, that will kind of like shake up the middleweight division, or if he ends up moving up to super middleweight or another division, maybe that could impact what happens with the middleweight division. But here, Oscar De La Hoya giving out that letter, or releasing a letter to the IBF. That is, some message that I would say kind of like seems like it was, a big message towards the IBF, but I don't see it going very far. As the IBF, like, seeing they're going to reverse their decision to strip Canelo Alvarez. I don't think they're going to just go ahead and just give back the IBF belt to Canelo Alvarez just because Oscar De La Hoya is threatening legal action. That won't, make any sense, and most likely be a waste of money in legal fees for all parties if they went through with that. So that's all I got in reference to Oscar De La Hoya releasing that letter to the IBF, basically blasting the IBF for stripping Canelo Alvarez. Tell us what you think about Oscar De La Hoya's comments to the IBF. Subscribe to the Boxing Source YouTube channel and catch the Boxing Source radio show live 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday night on Blog Talk Radio, or catch it on podcast, whatever you use for your favorite podcast app. And on that note, folks, I'm out. Peace.